good you're here. As this year comes to an end, I find myself reflecting on past New Year's and how I never found a reason to celebrate. Even though this past year has been one of the most difficult in my life, I finally feel like I can join in the celebration of the end of an old year and the promise of a new one. I think in the past, I knew I was on a path that would not lead to my happiness, but I wasn't sure what to do about it. The past several years have been extremely difficult, but I think I've finally found a path that I could be happy on. I've finally found a path where I can't wait to see where it leads me, and I'm excited for the future. YouTube and you all are part of that. So this year I say farewell to 2021, and I celebrate with my fellow humans that we all made it through another difficult year. And I look forward with hope that I haven't felt in a very long time towards 2022 and the years to come. We certainly live in interesting times. I hope you all have a wonderful new year, and may this new year spark hope in you like it does for me. I couldn't think of a better way to celebrate the new year than finishing a project that has actually taken years to complete. Strap yourselves in, this is gonna be a journey. This is where it all began. I thought I'd taken more pictures in progress for this one, but apparently not. I used 2 different weaves of chainmail for the skull cap and nose guard, box chain and a variation of Byzantine. I strung lengths of chain from the lower edge of each eye hole to angle up toward the ears. I made the eyebrows as separate pieces with flat wire, and then spray painted it to match the antique bronze of the rest of the wire. The chainmail weaves mimic the Celtic knot designs on the reference. Before we hide the stand, I want to line the inside of the skull cap with black leather to help bring out the color of the crystals in the wire. It was pretty difficult to attach the pieces on camera. Also, it is a tedious process that is not very interesting to watch, like so much of what I do. So I did most of it off camera, but I wanted to show you how I did it, if you're interested. I only use scraps of leather. I don't buy sheets. I don't like the shine of the leather, so I decided to use the textured side facing out. I was trying to use a needle at first, but it was too difficult to push it through the leather without warping the frame, so I resorted to cutting a small hole in the leather with an X-Acto knife and securing the edge to the wire with a thinner piece of wire. I strung the thin wire through the weave and used separate pieces of wire for each hole I made, so if any piece should ever break, it won't undo the whole thing. This helmet has only taken 3 years or so to reach a point where I feel comfortable saying he's done. If you haven't seen the video where I finished a green mixed media helmet, I'll leave a link in the description. I named the green one Noggin. Let me know what I should name this guy. Now I cut holes in the leather for where the long crystals poke through to add stability. This step tripped me up a bit. I scratched my hands up pretty considerably attaching the center and side strips, so I put this project aside for a few months. I stabilized them further with a few drops of UV resin to glue the crystals to the wireframe. Moving along! I decided to use a simple Japanese weave of chainmail to make the neck guard. I am using the same beading wire to secure the neck guard that I used to add the hanging chains in the front. I realized at this point that I hadn't measured this piece in a while. I actually had to remove some columns to make it fit properly. Oh, hello. I used a crimp bead to anchor the beading wire to the frame. Weave the rings onto the frame, alternating between a jump ring on the frame and a piece of the chainmail weave. The ideas for these helmets develop in stages. I love sculpting faces, but I'm not good enough with the wire to capture expression. Yet. A mask is doable. A metal mask. It's not a large leap to armor, especially with all the beautiful decoration some of them have. The colors are picked before the sculpture is even designed. I think the blue and bronze is so beautiful together. I have other color combinations ready for helmets to be designed for them, so I will keep making these until I can't anymore. With each one, I feel like I'm pushing myself further and learning so much about how to get it to look the way I want. After I pick the color combination, I go online to find a helmet with an interesting design. I enjoy making chainmail. It's soothing, kind of like knitting. Some of the weaves bring to mind the decorative patterns on the armor, but I like adding a little chaos in the form of spider-webbed wire and roughly formed crystals. I think the naturally formed crystals make a beautiful addition and contrast to the symmetrical qualities of the face and the chainmail weaves. This got really heavy. How much do you think he weighs by the end of this? Put your guesses below. And if you're right, you win 37.5 bonus points. I secured the end of the beading wire with another crimp bead. This was how I imagined it. He's so lovely, but he feels unfinished, very top-heavy. I think the crystals and metal are really beautiful together, but he looks kind of silly on a hat stand. For Noggin's stand, I covered it with paper paste and crystals to make him look like he's melding with rock. For this one, I thought I would continue with the natural theme. The crystals in the skull cap remind me of ice. I've started messing around with resin, and I have mixed feelings about it, but I must admit there are some really fantastic effects you can achieve with it. I'm using 2-part art resin. It's pretty good if you heat it up a bit before using. Just set it in some warm water for 5 minutes or so to remove as many of the bubbles as possible. Jelly has mentioned getting a pressure pot for resin projects in the future. A pressure pot puts the resin under extreme pressure to push all the air bubbles out. I'm combining all that I have left because I'm making 2 parts to the bottom, one to cover the vertical rod of the stand, the other to cover the circular base. I want a couple of different colors to mimic ice, but also to connect it to the crystals on top. So I mix the resin for 3 minutes, then separate it and add the pigment for the bottom part of the glacier. I mixed some gray-blue acrylic paint and purple and blue Pearl X interference powder pigment. I'm keeping one container clear, and I add a little white acrylic paint and some Pearl X macro pearl powder pigment to the 3rd container of resin. I've watched this work for people. I was not super confident I could make it work for myself, but for situations like this, I do as much research as I can and then dive in head first. I want the top of the glacier to be white, the center is the clear, and the bottom is the bluish purple. And what you're witnessing now is pure panic. I shove a paintbrush down to the tip of the peaks to make sure the resin gets into all the spaces. This resin has a limited work time, and I don't perform well when I'm being timed. I stopped playing many popular board games because I am not a fool, but I certainly look like one when I'm trying to perform tasks while being timed. So that is one reason you can't really see what I'm doing. I apologize. Shout out to the Juliart, who I learned this technique of molding and casting resin to look like water. I made a huge mess, but I came up with something that I'm really happy with, and I couldn't have done it without her tutorial. I will have the video I watched and her channel linked below. I used a product called Shaper Sheet to make the molds using the technique the Juliart outlines in her video. Basically, because of the foil, it'll hold its shape, and as long as you're careful to fold the edges over and crimp them tight, no resin should leak out. It's wonderful stuff. Getting it out of the mold, tested how much I wanted this. I am nothing if not stubborn. The second piece came out a lot easier than this one. It was the design of the mold that made it so difficult to remove, but it was designed very purposefully. Here was another rookie mistake. The Juliart suggested gluing plastic to the foil so you can reuse the shaper sheet. I didn't necessarily want to reuse it, but I wanted to make sure it would demold alright, so I used an extra shower curtain between the foil and the resin. But the shower curtain had texture on it, so the resin came out cloudy. I think this ended up working in my favor because resin is awful and amazing. This piece came out almost perfect. I made the mold kind of curling in on itself so I could twist the piece onto the vertical part of the hat stand and then seal it together. I got some UV resin because it cures so much faster than 2-part resin under a UV lamp. I had seen in some videos that sometimes when there are imperfections in your resin, you can paint a thin coat of wet resin onto it and it regains its transparent qualities. Now, we have established that I am no fool. Yet, I struggled to get this resin to cure. This torch kinda worked. I had to hold it on each spot for minutes, not seconds, like everyone else seems to be able to do. At the time that I was making this part, it was insanely humid here in the flatlands, but I ended up putting these pieces outside to cure in the sun because it was still tacky. I figured it out. More powerful lamp needed. I got 3 different lamps for this project, and I think I broke all of them. One thing I have not been very good at in the past is how to display my work. The stand designs have been kind of an afterthought, but I am starting to incorporate the stand in the overall design. So transparent. Oh, hello. I thought I had planned the pieces out to the proper height, but this piece interferes with the fall of the chain in the front and back, so I will save it for another project. I think it's really lovely. A crown, perhaps? Okay. Plan B for base. I found this mold. I think it's supposed to be an ashtray on Amazon. It has a rocky texture, and I think I can get it to work the way I need it to. I had to get some more 2-part art resin. I left it in the warm water again, but look at all those bubbles! Hopefully everything will even out as it dries. I want to recreate the color combinations that I did for the first base that did not work. So I added the same acrylic paint and mica powder. I think I should have done the larger quantity of resin as clear, and the 2 smaller amounts as the color. Saying it out loud, it seems obvious. This is a learning experience. I think because the mold was much smaller and I had less clear resin as an additive, it turned out opaque and dull. Nothing to do but push stubbornly forward. I plan on making a slit in the side and cutting out the center to fit the tower into it. The resin was not completely cured when I did this. That made things a lot easier. I was able to cut it with my tin snips and bend it open to fit around the base of the tower. Now I'm going to layer the UV resin over the 2 pieces until they blend into one piece. This took what feels like eternity, but once I got the new lamp, things moved a little faster. Progress. This is a bit terrifying. I've reached a point where I need to attach the base and continue to work on it. I have not attached the helmet to the hat stand just in case this ends in disaster. I will hopefully be able to save the helmet. I'm keeping it on the stand so I don't build the resin out or up too much, but I am wrapping him in foil to keep him safe. Who's panicking? I'm not panicking. You're panicking. I reinforced it with some tape because that neck guard is so heavy. Now I just have to negotiate the base around the hat stand. Come on, little darling. It's all coming together. I'm a professional. I've been building up the layers off screen, but I am having a hard time getting the bottom to cure. Faulty torch! Faulty torch! This sucker is getting really heavy too. My solution is to seal the bottom of the hat stand and the base of the ice together with the 2-part resin. This shaper sheet is great stuff. It's a thick foil attached to a thick felt. It is used in model building, nature scenes and stuff. This is how I made the shaper sheet into a mold. I'm using the 2-part art resin again because it was a relatively cheaper option, and I haven't had trouble with it not curing or turning yellow. I'm getting a little better at guessing how much I will need. A little better. I'm adding the same colors of acrylic paint and mica powder that I did for the other pieces. But here's where I made a mistake. Another mistake. I wanted to add a little brown to make the ice look older, but the brown was so warm and I added too much, so it turned a snotty purple-brown color. Oh, hello, Panic. I haven't seen you in minutes. Quick, add more blue. A lot more blue. I will make you work. I didn't want to remix the resin and do it again because I didn't know if I would have enough to finish the piece, and this was getting expensive. It's not the ugliest color I've ever seen. That wasn't enough. Perhaps I can adjust the color with a second pour. Kinda. After it cured a bit, I demolded it and cut it down. After brushing some blue interference powder on it, I started attaching small bits of cured resin to add texture. I think I can salvage this. Things moved a lot more quickly with this bigger lamp. How delightful! It's made for curing acrylic nails, but it's shaped pretty perfectly for this project. I brush on the mica powder when I feel like it needs some color, and then seal it with another coat of UV resin. Having clear resin in between the layers of color creates depth that, I think, brings to mind real ice, as well as references the crystals above. progress. We're getting there. Taking a break from the base, I wanted to build up some shards at the top so you could see the ice through the eye holes of the mask. I took the leftover resin from the base and poured it into flat silicone molds, and then cut out shards with my tin snips. Now I'm attaching them with UV resin and will continue to coat them until they blend in with the tower. It will happen! I have no real plan or design for these shards, except that I want the front to be higher than the back. This project was filled with so much uncertainty, but, spoiler alert, I think it came out beautifully. It's fun to watch it all come together. While I was getting my undergraduate degree, I took a 3D design class from a man who could throw pots with his feet. One of our projects was to make a wearable piece of art out of wire. It was in this class that I learned some armature work and twisted wire techniques. I've always liked working on faces more than other parts of the body, I suppose. So I decided to make a wire mask based off the cover of a book I had just started reading. I wanted to decorate it with a chainmail weave that I had learned a few years prior. When I told my teacher of my plans, he told me I wouldn't be able to do it. Well, say that again, Teach? This is truly where it all began. I dust them with some blue interference powder and start another coat of UV resin. Many coats later, here we are. Oh my goodness. I'm not sure if this is too much, but I wanted to tie the helmet even more to the base. Make sure they look good together. So I decided to add some crystals to the base. At first, I envisioned them tied together with wire, almost like a fence, but I couldn't get that to work, so I started placing them individually. Okay, I'm not sold. What do you think?
Professional. What's going on here? When and how did this occur? Blast!
You will finish. You will. Come on. Oh, he was there. He was right there. How did this even happen? And I also lost it again. You know what? Can you tell? Maybe he'll never be done.
I still wasn't sold on the crystals around the base, so off camera, I did another pour of 2-part resin to embed the crystals in ice. Yes, I am! I am a professional! Finally, I got some blue lights to go inside of the base. What do you think?
It's taken months for me to convince myself that he's good enough to be considered finished. For now. I reserve the right to revisit him at any time in the future, should I ever become dissatisfied. But at the moment, I think he's lovely, and I'm pleased with how he turned out. Do you have any hopes for the new year? Let me know down in the comments. My hope is that we have many more successful projects to come. But until then, take care, and I'll see you next time.